Today on Building Giants, the Black Commercial Real Estate Podcast, we sit down with Kenisha Robnett, Vice President of RE/MAX Platinum Access. Kenisha is a 13-year industry veteran who was a former senior manager in Walmart's corporate real estate department and a former tenant rep with UGL Equus, now Cushman & Wakefield. Kenisha will discuss her unique journey through commercial real estate as a Black woman and why she decided to obtain a CCIM designation and a master's in real estate development. She also will share some insights into the tool set she employs in order to fully serve her client base. All of that and more right now on Building Giants.
They call me
Kenisha, how are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. How about you?
I am wonderful. Thank you so much for taking the time to sit down and chat with me and share your experiences and insight with our audience.
It's a pleasure. Thank you so much.
Let's begin with your explaining in greater detail your current role at RE/MAX Commercial.
Currently, I am the Vice President at RE/MAX Platinum Access, and I represent private and corporate investors. So that's anywhere from acquisitions to dispositions, lease negotiations. I even do business brokerage at times, development projects, and basically whatever my client needs. And then also, just as of lately, I've become the commercial trainer for our firm.
Oh, that sounds exciting. What exactly does that entail?
I literally had the opportunity to have a 3-hour class teaching on commercial leases. So every new commercial broker that comes on with our firm, I have the ability to teach them and mold them and encourage them.
So how has it been so far?
Excellent, because I feel like, my class is not your typical class where they just give you textbook. They give you the what, but they don't actually tell you processes and the how to. And so I feel like I'm very transparent. I give them real life scenarios. We're looking at leases. We're looking at actual deals. So it's more of a hands-on approach to give them a real life scenario for their growth.
And you're coming from an interesting perspective, one that is different from a lot of brokers because you have been an entrepreneur, you have worked in the corporate realm, which we're going to get to. You have worked in commercial brokerage, you work for a developer. You have a perspective of getting deals done and being able to speak from the standpoint of someone who has been at the table when things have closed and someone who has negotiated deals and done more than just find people space.
That's correct.
Let's take a walk through your history, at least as it pertains to commercial real estate. Your real estate career began in 2005, which was about 12 years before you joined RE/MAX, correct?
Yes. So I started my real estate career in Arizona, and I was an entrepreneur. I was managing a multi-million-dollar portfolio for commercial and residential properties for a private investment firm in Arizona. And then the market began to shift, and I was fortunate to join a commercial brokerage firm called UGL Equus. And that company has since merged with Cushman & Wakefield, but at that time I was a tenant rep with them for 5 years. And so while I was in Arizona, I had the ability to complete my master's degree in real estate development, and then was later hired by a subsidiary of Novair Development Group, and that brought me back to Atlanta. So then when I was in Atlanta, I managed 3 of their luxury high-rise projects in Midtown and Buckhead. And in between that time, there was a few short stints along the journey. But finally, I landed an amazing position in the real estate department at Walmart headquarters. And then after Walmart, through relationships and networking, I was introduced to a Black female broker who had just purchased a RE/MAX. And then that was the perfect setup. So now together, we're building out that brand for the firm and teaching and developing our people in commercial real estate and properties and everything else. So it's been definitely an interesting journey over the past 13 years.
It sounds like it. Now, you mentioned Novair. Novair Group is the same developer that builds Sky Houses.
Yes, Sky House, Gallery on Peachtree. They also did Viewpoint and a number of others.
Now, of all of those experiences, which would you say was the most challenging for you, and which would you say was the most beneficial considering where you are today?
That's a loaded question because they all have their challenges and their benefits. But I would say when I was doing real estate in corporate America, that was challenging in itself simply because I do have an entrepreneurial spirit. So, but when you're in corporate America, you're confined to, I would say, color within the lines of the red tape in politics. So that was a tough pill for me to swallow because I would work countless hours to get a deal done and then get paid a salary. Yet the broker that we relied on in the field got the massive commission. So that situation, it's like, it's heart-wrenching for an entrepreneur at heart. Because on the other end, as an entrepreneur, the commission is so well worth the work, but the hustle is real. So there's no 2-week salary to fall back on, you know what I mean? And on the other hand, so now I have my, my real estate experience at the largest, of course, retailer in the world, which was extremely beneficial because it touched so many facets of real estate. And that, as you can imagine, Walmart runs a lean ship. So I did everything in my portfolio. One of my territories, I had Texas, where I was developing 12 new store projects in various stages of development. I was selling excess land. I was conducting lease renewal negotiations, managing for over 400 properties, easements and billboards, and traveling to sites. And the list goes on. So that experience was, amazing, just to be able to do all of those things at once. And it was an extremely fast-paced environment, and the opportunity was priceless. So on one end, it's like, you have a salary and you have a limit, but then you also have the experience. And then on the entrepreneurial side, the sky is the limit, but then it's commission-based. So there are benefits and challenges to both, but they're amazing. So it's just based on, I guess kind of what works for you.
How steep was your learning curve throughout your career at the different stops you made along the way? Because I imagine when you first began your career, you didn't know how to do every type of transaction you know how to do now. So how was that, just getting to the point where you were proficient? And did you have any help along the way? Did you have a mentor? Did you go it on your own and, just use whatever resources you had at your disposal? I'm curious to know how you got to be an expert in what you do now.
That's a great question. And I would say every single experience was different. So when I first began in the commercial brokerage realm, that was really sink or swim. I was 5 years with a company and never once met my broker. When I first got hired there, I spent the first week at our headquarters in Chicago for sales school, for sales training to teach you how to do cold call. And then when I came back to the office in Arizona, it was literally, here's the phone, have at it. Learn every single tenant in every single building in the area, know when their lease ends, begins, renews, and call on them. So that was literally the introduction into the commercial real estate realm. And it was sink or swim. Now on the Walmart side, I've just learned along the way to find mentors early on. That's why right now I'm so big on teaching and developing and pulling other people up with me, because there's not that many people that would do that would teach, that would spend the time. So I try to find someone that is in the area, that's an expert, that's where I want to be, and try to get as much information from them as possible. Now, when I first began my career in 2005, I was just totally blessed. I had, there was a couple that was in Arizona. It was a husband and wife team. And when I tell you, they were just amazing. She was Black Puerto Rican and he was a white guy from Texas, but they together were dynamic and so aggressive when it came to real estate. So he was an instructor trainer on the real estate side. She knew everything about the mortgage industry and insurance, and they literally poured into me like I was their only surviving heir. And they bought me an iPod and they filled it with every single digital real estate book available at the time. Think about Robert Kiyosaki, Donald Trump, unfortunately, but Donald Trump. Who else? Russ Whitney, Napoleon Hill, Think Like a Million, Think and Grow Rich, The Millionaire Next Door. Everything you can imagine. They put all of these teaching tapes on an iPod, and they literally told me, listen to this day and night until it makes sense. And then they would just throw me into real estate situations, and literally that information would just come back. It would just come back. It would come up. And then I was able to put deals together. So that was the most powerful situation for me. And I'm forever grateful to that couple that did that, because that set me up for the rest of my life.
You mentioned Kiyosaki, you mentioned Trump, you mentioned Napoleon Hill. None of those men are Black. You stated your earliest mentors were a couple consisting of a Black Puerto Rican woman and a white man. And with the exception of the Puerto Rican woman, depending on how she self-identifies, that would mean your earliest influencers, that couple, Napoleon Hill, Donald Trump, and Robert Kiyosaki, were all non-Black. Now, was that something that struck you as problematic at the time, or is it something that registered as a non-issue because your focus was just on trying to get the necessary information in order to make yourself an expert in the field?
They were the ones that was allowed to have the information. You know, for so long, we weren't even able to run in those circles. You know, if you look at the commercial real estate industry as a whole, it's still a sprinkle of Black brokers. It's still not, we're not infiltrating that industry as we should be. So I would say I just took it as an opportunity to learn from the people that have been able to have that experience.
I want to switch topics now and move away from talking about the beginnings of your career and your influences and shift the focus to the client side. Throughout your career, how difficult has it been for you to be able to identify and secure Black clients?
Back when I was a tenant rep at UGL Equus / Cushman & Wakefield, remember, I was there for 5 years. And through that entire time, I only had one Black client. So now that I am back in Atlanta with a firm that allows me to have more autonomy on the clients that I choose to work with, I'm in a better position to work with our people. So now, there aren't too many Black commercial brokers in the first place. And if everybody is chasing the national user or the big fish, then that once again leaves our businesses and our investors unrepresented and underserved. So now with our firm, RE/MAX Platinum Access, I have the opportunity to work with first-time investors, even the larger clients. And I have been very impressed to see more Black entrepreneurs with the means to invest in commercial real estate. Now, I do have to do more educating and sometimes help with business plans, but I have tools and I have resources to help to help our community. So since moving back to the new firm over the past year, I can finally say yes. I worked with a Black investor from New York. He paid cash for a multifamily project he's currently rehabbing, and it's in walking distance to the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. I'm working with 2 Black Atlanta restaurateurs whose flagship restaurant has been consistently generating over $2 million in sales for the past 5 years. They have the capital to purchase, and we're working on their second location. I'm also working with a Black developer. We're tackling some acreage in DeKalb County with plans to build contemporary townhomes like a subdivision. And I also had the opportunity to represent a Black pastor who is an absolute amazing steward of the resources. And he orchestrated a massive cash savings. And his congregation was able to purchase a 50,000 square foot retail space. They completely are gutting it, redesigning it, and converting it into a place of worship. And that entire project is debt free. So I have, just taken it upon myself to work with our people, because if we don't, then who will? So as we advance as brokers in our career, we have to go back, educate, and bring others with us. We can't leave our people and our businesses and our investors by the wayside simply because we're chasing a dollar or chasing the bigger fish, because we all have to rise together.
What do you think it's going to take in order to start shifting our community's attention toward commercial real estate?
I think exactly what you're doing now as far as educating. And this is actually a platform where you're putting out the information for free so people can access it, share it with others. And that's all it is. It's just education. So there has been so much, like an influx of whether that's a commercial on television or a video or some sort of webinar or seminar for residential, but the commercial industry has been such a tight-lipped industry for so long. And it has been challenging for our people to infiltrate that system, just to get in, just to get a foot in the door to get that information. Why? Because it's lucrative. It's you can get a quicker return on your investment, a larger, substantial return on your investment. And it's historically has been like a closed door to us. But the more that are privy to that information need to go back and share. So I just literally think it's just more educating that needs to take place.
What advice do you have for residential investors who might be peeking over the fence at commercial or people who are interested in a career as a commercial real estate professional?
Just get as much information as possible. They can read books from successful real estate investors. They can, like I said, attend the classes, get a mentor. They can make sure you put a team together. You can surround yourself with professionals that know the industry and can help you avoid the pitfalls. So every person interested in either acquiring a commercial space or a commercial property or a lease or even becoming an investor, there's certain people that you need in your corner. You need an exceptional real estate attorney. You need a CPA. You need a lender. You need maybe even someone to do a financial plan for you or a business plan for you. You need a banker, a surveyor, an inspector, a CFP, and of course, a real estate broker that is knowledgeable about the market, who can strategize, negotiate, and help you be successful.
I'm sure there are some self-doubters listening to this right now who might be saying, well, this all sounds interesting, and to a certain degree, I can fantasize about becoming a commercial real estate investor or potentially a commercial real estate professional. But my background is in X, or I've spent so many years doing Y, so I really don't think it's possible for me to make this transition at this point in my life. But your path wasn't exactly linear, because even though you have great experience and you have a master's and you have a commercial real estate designation, you also have a science degree from your undergraduate days, correct?
So, yes, I went into chemistry with a focus in biochemistry, and with basically because of a promise I made when I was 9 years old. I didn't deviate. I kept with that promise, and I was not going to break it. When I was 9, a close friend of mine was 8 years old, and he died of leukemia. But on his 8th birthday, I promised him that I would find the cure for cancer. And so literally I kept that. I said, I didn't even consult my heart to see if there was any other interest in any other area. It was like, nope, I'm going into science. Nope, I'm going to study. And that's it. I had just a one-track mind.
You ended up getting your CCIM designation, which I'm going to ask you about in a second, and you got your master's in real estate development.
That's correct.
So for the listeners who may not be familiar, what is a CCIM designation and what are the benefits of having it?
Sure. So the CCIM is a certified commercial investment member, and it's literally one of the highest real estate designations a commercial broker can achieve. It's held by less than 6% of all commercial agents worldwide. You have to complete hours of educational classes. There are 4 that are mandatory. There's 2 electives, and they're centered around financial investment strategy, user decision analysis, market analysis. You also have to complete a negotiations and an ethics course. And then at the end of each class, there's an exam. And then upon completion of all the courses, there's a 6-hour exam, and it's only offered twice a year. So if you didn't pass the first time, you get one more shot. If you didn't pass that time, then you have, you can take it once nationally and then once internationally. And then finally, after you finish all your classes and all your exam work, you have to submit a portfolio of personally completed deals. And they have to range between like 3 and up, between $10 to $30 million or above. And all of those deals will be reviewed by a panel for completion. So once you get that designation, that's just another great tool in the tool bag, and will help to set me apart from the rest.
And on top of that, like I said, you have a master's in real estate development.
That program was 1 year, and it's supposed to be for people that are actually active in your field. And, it's only like maybe 4, they sell it as it's 4 hours a day. Like it's an intensive 1 year in and out. But we were literally there from like 8 a.m. to sometimes 3 a.m. working on projects. And that was a tough year for me because I was still working full-time in the commercial industry, closing deals, working with clients, and then also going to school and working projects, and everything was hands-on. So you're in a classroom setting, but you're being taught by industry professionals. So it's not just textbook. We were taught, I got my degree at Arizona State University. And so I was taught the real estate of construction. So then there was a professor from the Dale Webb School of Construction, then the Herberger School of Design, then the Sandra Day O'Connor School of Law, then the W.P. Carey School of Business. So it was the real estate aspect of all of those different components. And then you had the hands-on approach of completing development projects. We did about 4 different synthesis projects. We traveled around the country. We were part of ULI and ICSC, and we went to HUD and DC. We saw some of the great developments around the country. It was extensive, but it was so well worth it, because once again, that just adds another tool to my tool bag, which sets me apart. And honestly, it's something that I had to do in this industry as a Black female, because literally I get looked at differently than maybe my white counterparts. It seems like I have to have more credentials to be taken seriously.
And you are a Black woman in an industry where only 3 to 4% of all brokers, this includes residential and commercial, are Black. This is just Black, period, male and female. So you figure, let's just split it down the middle, right? This is not going to be scientific, but I'm sure it's not too far off. That leaves about 1.5%. And I'm just going to go on a limb and say it's probably not even that high, and that there are more Black male brokers than Black female brokers, although this is kind of comparing 2 grains of sand to 1. What has your experience as a woman been like, and then more specifically as a Black woman in this industry?
Woo. So, I'm 13 years in now. But in the beginning, I just feel like I just had to jump through so many hoops just to be recognized in the room. I remember my first pitch to a company, and, they saw me standing by my computer in the boardroom, but it literally did not even dawn on them that I was going to give the presentation. There was the normal chatter beforehand in the boardroom, and people were greeting one another. And I remember someone coming up to me saying, well, we'll get the meeting started when your boss gets back in here. And, I'm like, wow. So they just thought I was there to take notes, and my partner was my boss. So you can imagine how far the jaws dropped and the silence that was in the room when I called the meeting to attention and began the presentation. And it's kind of been a trickle of that, here and there since then. But now you fast forward 13 years later, and it's interesting how the letters behind my name actually precede me. So I had to go the extra mile to have more experience, to have more designations than my counterparts, and establish more credibility than my colleagues, simply because my name is Kenisha and my skin is brown. That's honestly why I feel so compelled to teach other women and other people that look like me, because there have been so many women that have an interest in commercial real estate and they get talked out of it, or they say, oh no, residential so much, you'd be so much better for residential, or they jump through the hurdles to get with the commercial firm, and then they get shoved into property management, or they end up being the transaction coordinator or the leasing coordinator, but not the actual broker. So I just want that's why I'm starting to teach more and to share my experience more, because they just need someone to know that they can, someone to tell them that they can do it, someone to believe in them, someone to not rain on their ideas or rain on their parade and put the fire out. They need someone to light that fire and say, yes, you can do it, and here's how.
And commercial is such a legacy industry, and there's so much nepotism in it.
Yes.
That's probably part of the reason you got those looks. I mean, aside from, just kind of the general, this can't be someone who is going to discuss something that's going to affect my money kind of looks and belief and attitude. And that's something that Black women everywhere have to deal with. And then, women, period, have to deal with. But in this industry, the real decision makers tend to be people who have deep roots in the industry. So whether that be their father, their cousin, they went to the same college and were part of the same fraternity, they have those powerful connections. And so when an outsider like yourself comes into a position where, you're calling shots and you're dictating, the decisions that they should make, then, it's somewhat natural for there to be some pushback, not saying it's okay. But, that's kind of what happens when you have an industry where all that is baked into the culture.
Right.
And because we don't have a firm presence, and because, for a lot of reasons that should be clear to most people, we don't have the same kind of legacy and we don't have the luxury of nepotism.
Right.
We're almost always outsiders in this industry.
Right. Mm-hmm. I remember someone telling me when I first started that, it was going to be really tough for you because they saw, they just know that, when they are at the country club, who's there and what the faces look like. When they're at the different galas, who's there, and and they know they've been rubbing shoulders with these same family names, same big wigs and CEOs and industries, and there hasn't been a face in the room that looked like mine. So they were like, well, where are you going to get all your deals from? They just were like, I just don't even understand. Like, how are you going to make any money? Because you're not in the places that I am, or historically, we haven't been in those circles or in those rooms or galas or auctions or, these well-kept secretive events. We have not been there. And so it's a fair question. It's fair to say. It's an interesting point of view as well. So we have to be more creative and more aggressive in our approach to getting our clients and getting deals done.
If any of our listeners wanted to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to reach out to you?
Sure. I would say my email address. My email is kenisha.robnett@remax.net. So that is KENISHA.ROBNETT@REMAX.net. And then they can also check my website, which is kenisha.robnett.remaxagent.com. KENISHA.ROBNETT.REMAXAGENT.com.
Kenisha, it has been great talking to you. We could probably do another full episode at some point, and perhaps if I extended the invitation, you would accept that.
I sure would. It would be a pleasure. I'm very proud of you. I'm proud of what you're doing. I will help to do whatever you need done because I believe in your mission and I want to help you succeed so we can all succeed together.